Good morning, everyone. We're continuing KITZUR HILCHOS SHABBOS, and we're still Nagdam, the introduction to the 39 Melachas. Number 1, he says, Melechas Machsheves, as we learned previously, Kfar Kesavnu Shekevish Melechas Shabbos Yalfinu Melechas HaMishkan. Since the Melachas that we're not allowed to do on Shabbos, we learn out from the Melachas, the activities done in the Mishkan, Eino Chayev Rak, Im Gam Naseh V'Oifem Derech Shenaseh Mishkan. You're only going to be chayiv, which means you're only going to be held accountable if you do the activity the same way that it was done in the Mishkan itself. As we mentioned the last couple of days, Meleches Machsheves, you are changing the mitzias, you're changing the reality of this thing to the action that you are doing. So says the KITZUR over here that therefore the malachas that you do on Shabbos, the isurim, the way in which you transgress it is very different based on the way in which you are accomplishing that malacha. The Davar Sheino Mischaven, for example, says something that you were not mechaven, you did not have in mind to do such a thing. We'll see all the meanings of this. Melacha and a malacha that you don't need for itself. We'll see. Klachayad v'shina, you do it in a kind of roundabout way. Mekalkel, or you're doing something that's destroying and there's no real benefit. Davar Sheino Miskayim, something that you do that's not going to last or endure. And so too, if it just happened by itself, or two people did the activity instead of one by himself, in all these cases, Peturim, you're going to be exempt. As we shall see, there's many cases where you're going to be pater from different malachas in Shabbos, even though it looks like what you're doing is the malacha, but at the end of the day, we judge it as you're not. So now he says, let's start with this list over here of the things that maybe it looks like you're doing a malacha, but it's not. Davar Sheino Mischaven, something that you were not mechaven, you did not intend as the result of the action that you are doing. When you do a certain malacha and it brings about a different result, you're not going to be chayiv unless you did the initial action, where you know for sure it's going to bring about this particular result, and you're going to do that malacha, that activity, that's asur. But if it's not guaranteed at the time that you're doing this particular pu'ula, this action, that the result is also going to be that a malacha was done, so then it's not considered that you did a malacha. And therefore even l'chachila, meaning no problem, you can do it, that particular pu'ula, that action, and even though that the result might end up being there's a malacha that took place, not your fault. As long as you were not mechaven, you did not have in mind that you want that malacha to take place. Let's give an example. There's a prohibition of making like a charitz, we'll call it a ditch, so to speak, in the ground of the floor of your house. In the olden days, they had dirt floors, and you cannot make a ditch. That's a prohibition of building on Shabbos, and you cannot do that. However, you're allowed to drag a bench on the floor of your house, which is made out of dirt. Even if you have a suspicion that maybe when you drag the bench on the floor, on the dirt floor of your house, it's going to make some kind of indentation, which might resemble a ditch. But do it in a way, but you drag it in a way, it's not guaranteed that there's going to be a ditch. Even if a ditch was made, you did not transgress anything. It's not like you took a shovel and you dug yourself a hole or a ditch inside of your house. You're dragging a bench, and maybe the bench is going to make this deep indentation, maybe it's not. And therefore, since that you're not mechaven, you had no intention that it's going to do, you just want to get the bench from one side of the house to the other side of the house. And so too, at the time that you're dragging, not given for sure that it's going to make this ditch, and you had no intention for it, that's not called doing a melacha. This is what we call something that you were not mechaven, you had no intention for the result that took place. And therefore, even though if you would have intended while you're dragging the bench and you're doing it in a strong way to make a ditch, that will be a problem. But if you're just dragging it along the ground and it does it by itself, that's a Davar Sheino Mischaven, and that is not a prohibition on Shabbos. Have a wonderful day.